Whenever I officiate a wedding, I explain that we break a glass because even at the most joyous of occasions, the world is still a bit broken, and it is up to the couple to together repair that world. It is hard to believe that we are here together again in this sanctuary exactly 1 year after a swastika was spray painted on the walls of our synagogue. But if that was upsetting, what happened over the weekend in Pittsburgh on Shabbat in a sanctuary is unspeakable. And yet, as the Talmud says, silence is akin to consent. And so we, people of all faiths, men and women, boys and girls, Democrats and Republicans, independents, Americans, we must come together and speak up and speak out. We must speak up for our Jewish community, and we must speak up for Jewish life and the sanctity of Jewish life. The name of the congregation that was attacked was the Tree of Life, the Etz Chaim. The Torah is our Etz Chaim, and we must learn about it, we must hold on to it, and we must pass its values down. And we must speak out. We must speak out against hate and bigotry wherever we see it, whether against our own or anybody else. We are not allowed to be silent. And we must do so together. I am honored to be surrounded by so many religious leaders from all faiths and all communities, including a dignitary, Liz Kruger. Thank you for being here. As we mourn the loss of our Jewish brothers and sisters, and we pledge, as we always do, to live. In Israel, when there is a terrorist attack, the next day, they get up, they rebuild, they keep going. That is what we are doing today. We must together remember the shards of the glass that get broken at a wedding and commit ourselves to a better world. A world built on relationships and love and trust and compassion and empathy. A world where we can raise our children, a world we can be proud of. A world that looks like this sanctuary today. Thank you for being here. We'll continue with Psalm 23 as the cantor recites it in the Hebrew, and we can recite it responsively. It's on the back of your page. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He gives me repose in green meadows. He leads me beside the still waters to revive my spirit. He guides me on the right path, for that is his nature. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no harm, for you are with me. Your staff and your rod comfort me. You prepare a banquet for me in the presence of my foes. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall be my portion all the days of my life. I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I invite up Reverend Stephen Bauman, a co-chair of the Partnership of Faith Communities, Partnership of Faith in New York City.
Rabbi Ain and the family of the Sutton Place Synagogue. Though I deplore the hateful event that has given rise to the need for this prayer service, speaking as co-chair of the Partnership of Faith in New York City, we are humbly and deeply grateful that you have offered your hospitality to the broader community to share our anguish as well as our compassion and empathy. My heart grieves for the loss of life in Pittsburgh. I grieve an encroaching corrosion of public trust. I grieve a resurgent scourge of anti-Semitism, fueled in part by a reviving virulent nationalism. Friends, old demons are on the loose in our land. It's imperative we take heart and hands in renewed bonds of compassionate regard for the sake of the common good of all peoples. We recognize a first order of business requires remembering and honoring the dead, the injured, and all who love them. That task brings us together tonight. In reading about the victims this morning, I was struck by a description of those who lost their lives as, quote, the steady anchors of a faith community that had persisted as a source of devotion, camaraderie, and memory. In other words, the ones who kept the community going. Every person present here tonight who is a part of a faith community recognizes this description as apt for a precious core of their own communities. And our hearts break at the thought of it. The partnership, which was founded nearly 30 years ago, is a consortium of Jewish, Muslim, and Christian leaders of congregations who have found friendship as well as common cause for the sake of the common good. Because of our standing relationships, we were able to issue a statement not long after learning about the massacre. And I'd like to read it aloud as a resolute public witness of our commitment to be repairers of the breach in the spirit of the prophet Isaiah. With one united voice, we, the undersigned, as members of a Partnership of Faith in New York City, deplore the horrific, murderous acts that took place at Congregation Tree of Life, a synagogue in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. As colleagues and leaders of faith communities in this city, we have learned from each of our traditions the importance of solidarity. Each of our traditions espouses some version of love for neighbor. Struggling together with the challenges of our city's diversity, we have come to the conclusion that an attack on one of us is an attack on all of us. We are committed to standing together and convinced that solidarity with others is an important public expression commended to us in each of our faith traditions. We gather together with our colleagues and congregants at Sutton Place Synagogue to pray together as a public sign of our commitment to one another and as a public rejection of all who would divide us and is a clear expression to commit ourselves to work together for justice, peace, and unity for all. Let us indeed be one on these matters. Thank you.
We are all members of the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh. I say that because although we may not pay dues to that synagogue, we know its members. They are us. They are each of us who come to synagogue to pray on Shabbat. They are each of us who have had simchas like brises and baby namings and bar mitzvahs and ufros and choose a synagogue to celebrate with our community. And they are each of us who come and say Kaddish every morning and every night so that we can remember the ones we have loved and lost. Today we memorialize those who lost their lives because they were part of our Jewish community, and we honor them for living a Jewish life. Today we thank those who risked their lives to come to their rescue. And today, as we join together in prayer, let us never forget that we are one nation, under God, indivisible, who stands for liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Rabbi Yang, for organizing this remarkable service. And thank you also to the leadership and congregation of Sutton Place for opening up this beautiful sanctuary to all of us. I stand before you officially this evening because I am the president of Or Olam, a synagogue just around the corner. But make no mistake, in my heart, indeed in my gut, this outpouring of support is special to me because I, like my parents before me and my grandparents before them, grew up in Pittsburgh in and around Squirrel Hill, the physical and emotional center of Jewish life in my hometown. Countless tears have been and will be shed. Countless words have and will be written and spoken to try to explain the horror of these events. I'm not capable of really capturing the full scope of this tragedy in words. So instead, let me tell you about the Jewish community of Pittsburgh that is an integral part of who I am. Pittsburgh, like many cities that are not as cosmopolitan as New York, although I caution you, I don't recommend that you tell a Pittsburgher that they are not cosmopolitan, was, during most of the 20th century, a collection of ethnic neighborhoods with very little diversity in those neighborhoods. The vast majority of Pittsburgh's Jews lived either in Squirrel Hill, the absolute center of Jewish life, or other neighborhoods quite nearby. Stanton Heights, the neighborhood where I grew up, was 2 miles away and a couple of large hills away. In my elementary school, probably 90% of the students were Jewish, and I am sure that was true at many schools in Squirrel Hill as well. But the Jewish community was, and still is, one, regardless of which side of those hills you happened to live on. I spent many hours in Squirrel Hill and had many friends who lived there. I played countless basketball games at the JCC where, sadly, the family members of the victims were gathered on Shabbat to await news of their loved ones. In those days, the fact of the matter was that most of us truly, for better and worse, stuck to our own kind. All of my doctors were Jewish and lived in the area. My mother worked for a sole practitioner accountant who was for many years the president of his synagogue. Most of the small shops that we frequented were owned by Jewish shopkeepers who also lived in the area. Recently, one of the many op-ed columnists that have written about this tragedy perfectly described this community as a kind of American shtetl. Everybody doesn't quite know everybody, but they almost do. I have not lived full-time in Pittsburgh for almost 40 years now, but my family and close friends were closely connected to 3 of the victims. It is too trite to say that it is one big extended family. It is not. But I have no doubt that each member of the Pittsburgh Jewish community feels a deep personal loss. After I suffered a death in my family many years ago, when I was quite young, I remember a wise adult telling me that there will always be a hole in my heart, always a little bit missing. I have found that to be true. Tonight, unfortunately, there are many more people with little holes in their hearts. But I have also learned that the best way to remember and honor those who have passed is to be inspired by them and to live your own life in a way that would make them proud and be an inspiration to others. I cannot pretend to speak for my hometown, but for this Pittsburgher, this gathering tonight, as well as the support of the entire American, indeed worldwide, Jewish community and the country as a whole, has been a source of immeasurable comfort, inspiration, and hope. For that, I thank you.
Call on Cantor Shiri Kidron to lead us in the Mishabera by Debbie Friedman and Drora Settel. It's on the back of your program, which you can all sing together. And again, if people would like to move in so that no one's standing outside in the foyer, you're certainly welcome to do so, as more could stand against the wall over there and the stained glass over there. Invite up all clergy who are here today to join in leading their prayer for peace responsively. If all clergy could please rise, and if everyone could please turn to page 178. Please come up to the bima.
May we see the day when war and bloodshed cease, when a great peace will embrace the whole world. For all who live on earth shall realize we have not come into being to hate or to destroy. We have come into being to praise, to labor, and to love. Fulfill the promise conveyed in Scripture, I will bring peace to the land, and you shall lie down, and no one shall terrify you. Let justice and righteousness flow like a mighty stream. Let God's peace fill the earth as the waters fill the sea. And let us say, Amen.
We'll continue with a reflection by Rabbi Warnick of Or Olam Congregation. This gathering tonight started as a quick email Saturday evening between Rabbi Warnick and myself. Do we want to do a small community event? I sent a note to the Partnership of Faith letting them know we'll be doing this, and 800 people showed up. But this is why we're together. Rabbi Warnick.
Thank you, Rabbi Ain. When the temple was standing in Jerusalem, and someone came in contact with death and impurity, they would have to go to the mikveh, to the ritual bath, and bathe, completely immerse themselves. And when they came up from the waters, they would be pure. Saturday, our Shabbat, when I heard of the events that happened in Pittsburgh, I fell into the realm of impurity, the realm of hate, and I was filled with despair. But as I look at all of you here, every single one of you, especially those who represent faith, I feel that I am bathed in the pure waters of love. And it seems to me that we can give no victory to hate. For there is no hate that is not corrosive and destroys both the object and the subject of hate. There isn't a tradition of spirituality that doesn't know this, that hate is our enemy. And we cannot hate. We cannot even, and you should forgive me, even call for the death penalty of that person who has corrupted the image of God in which he was created by doing that heinous act. I cannot believe in his sanity. I refuse to believe that anyone who is sane can do that. And so I turn back to the tradition of faith. And I think in terms of one of the great sages of our faith, Hillel the Elder, who actually created the golden rule when he said, "Ma desani lach lachavrak la taved," what is hateful to you, do not do to your neighbor. And those words which actually apply really to what we are about this evening. Imen ani li, me li, if I am not for myself, who will be for me? Ve'im ani la'atzmi, and if I am for myself alone, ma ani, what am I? If I only think in terms of what occurs to me. Yes, there was a synagogue in Pittsburgh which experienced this, but there were black churches that were bombed, and there were black churches that were invaded, and their worshipers were massacred. Hate fills this land, and it can only be answered with our united stand for love and for understanding and for the recognition of those of us who think in terms of a tradition that says that every single human being is created in the image of God, and therefore each and every single human being is sacred, no matter what, no matter what, no matter what. And they should not be denigrated in speech or by action by anyone high or low. I will go forward without fear. I will go forward because the only choice is to be brave. But I will go forward with the other words of Hillel, who said, Hevei mitalmidav shel Aharon. Be of the disciples of Aaron the high priest. The high priest who used to go and try to make friends between people who had arguments, between husband and wife. Hevei ohev shalom. To be a lover of peace. A rodev shalom. A pursuer of peace. And bringing everyone to the love and understanding, which is the lesson that God gives to each and every single one of us, no matter in what language it is transported to us. The language may be different, but the tone is always the same. My dear friends, especially those of all the other faiths that joined us tonight, I salute you, and I am thankful for your presence and the courage and the love that I feel. And I give it back to you as double-fold as I can. For I have now come again up out of the waters. I have been purified by your love to know that this country will not succumb as long as there are men and women like all of you who are gathered here this evening, and hopefully every single evening and every single day we shall repeat the message of this night so that it resounds throughout the land. For love shall conquer hate, and understanding shall be the blessing that comes to all of us.
Please rise for the El Malei Rachamim, the traditional memorial prayer. Cantor Karen, my clergy partner here at Sutton Place, will recite it in Hebrew. And then Rabbis Joshua Davidson, Nicole Auerbach, and Stephanie Colin will read it in English, including the names of the victims from Saturday.
11 Jewish brothers, sisters, at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh, that brutally murdered by evil men, began to heim
Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to all those who were murdered at the Tree of Life Synagogue, who have entered into eternity.
Daniel Stein, Joyce Feinberg, Richard Gottfried, Rose Mallinger, Jerry Rabinowitz, Cecil Rosenthal, David Rosenthal, Bernice Simon, Sylvan Simon, Melvin Wax, and Irving Younger.
O God of mercy, let them find refuge in your eternal presence beneath the shadow of your wings, and let their souls be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God, you are their inheritance. May they rest in peace. And let us say amen.
I invite up Rabbi Scott Perlow of the 92nd Street Y to light a yahrzeit candle in the memory of those who were murdered. I invite the other rabbis and cantors that are here to join all of us for Mourner's Kaddish. I invite everybody to say it with us if you feel so comfortable. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, ve'alma divrach yirtzeh v'yamlich malchuteh, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayeh d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'gala u'bizman kariv imru amen, yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'me'omaya, Yitzbarach v'yishtabach v'yipahar, Tromam v'yitaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal, Shmei d'Kudusha b'richu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata standing as we open the Ark, and I invite you to turn to page 184 in the book as we sing together Etz Chaim Hi, a prayer about our Torah, a prayer in memory of those whose lives perished. Shalom, a song for peace, a song where we ask God to bring peace not only on us, but on our community, our country, and our world. Please sing with us. Page 202 at the bottom. It's also in the transliteration in the red. Thank you, everybody, for being here this evening in prayer. Let's see only better days.